All right, we're going to go ahead and get going here, folks. Sorry for the delay. The room was double booked apparently today, which we'll make sure doesn't happen again. But I'm Trey Stewart, Senate Republican leader, joined with my House counterpart, Representative Falkingham. I'm going to turn it over to him in just a minute. But the topic today, we're talking about all things homelessness and housing and what's happening in the state of Maine. We've got a good lineup of speakers here right after us, so we'll be back with you at the end for Q&A about this subject and others as well, if anybody has others, and we'll try to make up some time here so that folks can still get to committee on time. So, Representative Falkingham.
Hi, thanks for being here today. Maine is not immune to Biden's open border policy. Our governor and the Democrats in the legislature are moving forward a policy of bringing in 75,000, what they call new Mainers, by 2029. Just to put that number in perspective, it's more people to move in than have moved in since 2000. And Mainers are footing the bill. We're here today to shine a light on this, and particularly one fund, the Emergency Housing Relief Fund. We found out a shocking number, $35 million, or 63% of that fund is being used to house migrants, prioritizing them over Mainers. Taxpayers need to know how their money is being spent. This is unacceptable, and I'd like to open up today with Representative Gary Drinkwater.
Thank you, Representative Falkingham. I'm Representative Gary Drinkwater, District 27. I've served on the Labor and Housing Committee. This is my second term. We had the Maine State Housing come before us and give us an overview of what's being spent and where it's going. I asked them for a pie graph like they used to give us, showing us how much we're spending on housing, which was a very good graph, and it showed, how much money we're spending. When I asked them if we could get another one of those, it was delayed. It sparked my curiosity. Why is this being delayed? So after several requests, Maine State Housing provided me with the requested report. And I want to thank Maine State Housing for releasing the spending report of the Emergency Housing Fund. I want to point out that a healthy debate is a good thing. Anytime we conduct a debate with participants from both sides, we can shine the light on it and we can come to a consensus, which is what we should be doing, and we can come up and show the Maine folks how their hard-earned money is being spent. And while serving, I heard from many citizens who have secured Section 8 housing vouchers. And I want to bring to your attention one particular lady from the Portland area who came and testified via Zoom that she had a Section 8 housing voucher, and she's been couch surfing for 5 years. Cannot find housing. We had numerous vets come before us and ask, why am I in this situation? I served my country with distinction. Why am I in last place? Same with the lady. Why am I being put at the end of the line? I want to read some things that we're spending millions of dollars on out of this emergency housing fund. $1 million to support expansion of legal assistance. $100,000 to support expansion of legal assistance to asylum seekers. $100,000 for legal and family support of asylum seekers. $13,929,000 for housing and comprehensive services. $4,435 million for a hotel for 241 people a night. This is just some of the taxpayers' money being spent. And I think, folks, and I hope that the media will do some more investigation on this, tell the story of the Mainers that can't get housing. We have them on record. We need you folks to bring attention to what's going on. You know what? If you've come to this state, we want to educate your kids. We want to help you. But when you look at these numbers, it's appalling that Mainers are getting pushed to the rear of the line and the asylum seekers are at the front of the line. So thank you for that. And I'd like to introduce Representative Bradstreet, who also serves with me on Labor and Housing. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Representative Dick Bradstreet from Vassalboro. I serve on the Housing Committee and on the Labor and Housing Committee. Now, we've always tried to act collaboratively with all the people involved in providing affordable housing in Maine. And we know and understand the challenges that we have with our workforce. And we want to work so we can bring more people into our state, and including asylum seekers. I think we all have that goal. However, if you take a look at some of these figures that we've provided for you, I think it'll kind of open your eyes a little bit about what is happening. We've asked, is there a plan? Is there an end game? Do we have something that we can set our eyes on, that we can say, you know, we're accomplishing something here? We're not sure of that. We haven't been involved in the discussions. So I hope you do take a look at that. You're going to hear a little bit more about some of the particulars in a few moments. I just hope that you will keep in mind that we're all trying to work in this together. We've been left out of the planning. We've been left out of discussions. That's not right. We're not bringing this up on our own. We've had people in the public, including people from the other side of the aisle, ask us what's going on regarding this type of housing. So it's a big issue. It's something we need to address, and I hope that we'll be able to work together to address it. Thank you, and I'd like to present Senator Matt Pouliot from the House, who's going to speak to you some more. Thank you.
Thanks, Dick. Good job. Good afternoon. I'm State Senator Matt Pouliot, represent Senate District 15, and I'm the lead on the Housing Committee and the Labor and Housing Committee for Senate Republicans. Thankful that you're all here today to talk about this pressing issue. You know, it's not lost on any one of us the fact that housing and lack of housing and access to housing is a crisis, not only for Maine people, but also nationally. We continue to grow as a nation, but for decades we've been underbuilt. So a lot of the crisis that's come to forefront recently is long standing before some of these issues of folks coming into the state, and they've only been exacerbated by the number of individuals who are coming in and the people who are here being left without housing options. But I'm not opposed to people coming into Maine. In fact, the only way that we're going to fill the some 42,000 jobs that are on the Maine Jobs Bank is to have people come in. We can't make enough babies to solve this problem of the silver tsunami. However, that's not what we're seeing happen. And we need accountability in these systems. Because in order for us to ensure that we're getting the workers that we need to make sure the system that's in place produces that as an outcome. Representative Bradstreet and I and the rest of the Housing Committee had the fortunate occasion to go to Saco, this hotel in which we've spent now over $13 million at. This hotel has served just 85 families. Now think about that for a moment. We have 186 really bright minds in the legislature working on really complex problems, and somehow almost $14 million is being diverted to help just 85 families. That doesn't seem right. Furthermore, these people have been there since August, and the large majority of them have not gone out and gotten placed in jobs. But that's not the story we were told while we were there. In fact, we walked in and I was really quite surprised. They had a process for getting people to fill out their work permit immediately, walk them through what they were going to need to do to be able to get out into the workforce, and had classrooms set up to learn English and help people start assimilating, doing the things that we asked people to do all the time, things that our ancestors did, some of them generations ago and some even more recently, right? Come here, learn how to get a job and get out into the workforce. That would be great. That's what we were told was happening in that facility. That's not what's happening in that facility. And I'm here to say that we need to make sure that if Maine people are here existing in this state, or people are coming to this state, that we have a pathway to prosperity for them, that we can ensure them that they're going to learn the skills that are necessary to be participating in the modern economy. And unfortunately, what's happening now is we're bringing way too many people here without a plan and without accountability to ensure that individuals are able to step up and participate in the workforce. In addition to that, there's so many Maine people, and I see it every day as a real estate agent. You sit down with a young couple that just got their approval for their first home and they're so excited, and you open up the MLS and you're like, well, here are your 4 options, and none of them are something that they can afford, and they continue to go on about doing what they need to get housing, but not able to secure their financial footing here in Maine and make a life for themselves and their family. To me, when we hear stories like this, it just shines a light on the fact that our priorities are out of order as a state. We need to make sure that people are not left in chronic homelessness for an entire lifetime, for sure. However, what's being done currently now with emergency relief programs for housing is in no way going toward ending these chronic issues. We need to invest in housing, to be sure, in the state, but we need to make sure that we're investing in housing that provides a pathway to prosperity for Maine people.
I want to close with 2 other quick things. First off, I want to direct folks to the information. You should have all received a packet in advance as well that has other information. It's a very data and statistic and monetary heavy topic. We encourage you to look through some of that and by all means ask questions at the end. One of the things that was most striking to me, I live in Presque Isle. We have a homeless shelter in Presque Isle, and from some archaic formula, I'm not even really sure, but the value of a homeless person in Presque Isle is apparently $6,000, but it's 3 to 4 times that in Portland on a per person basis. That's according to the data that we've received here, and when you dig into those numbers, it's really pretty alarming because we're not talking about higher population, lower population. That is on a per person basis. So it's really striking to me that the folks in rural Maine are being told to do more with less. Meanwhile, Taj Mahals are being built for other folks in more urban places that aren't even Maine residents, Maine citizens. That in Aroostook County alone, and I talked about this, you'll recall during the debates about LD1 and /LD3 at the very beginning of this legislature. And Republicans were opposed in large part to that legislation, and still are, because there was no plan. There was no plan laid in front of us then by the Democrats in the legislature or in the executive branch, and there is no plan today. The federal funding was running out, and I shared the story of how we in northern Maine pulled together a task force of community leaders, and we found local solutions to that problem for substantially less money. Solutions that didn't involve just giving away free housing, free food, free everything, and pulling more people to Maine, all of those pull factors, and instead got them what they actually needed to get through the winter, and coupled that with things like job training, interview practice, skill sets that would be available to anybody during the day. They would have a safe place to sleep at night, but during the day would be working on breaking that cycle of homelessness and poverty. That's not happening anywhere else, frankly. We just heard the story of a place where we were spending millions more than what this approach costs in northern Maine. There's no reason we couldn't replicate that elsewhere, but a lack of leadership on the part of the Democrats to put a plan in front of us and move that plan forward. We're still waiting. There is still no plan, but once again, they are coming back to us with handout, asking for more money in the supplemental budget that we're going to be debating later this year. I look forward to seeing that plan if it's ever going to even exist. On that, happy to answer questions about this subject for anybody. And yes,
There's one number I want to.
yeah, go ahead. Absolutely. Yep.
So if you haven't been given this handout, we can provide them to you. We encourage you to look at them. Up here on the, that's not page 5. Here we've got page 5 of the graphic. And here's the main point of this whole thing. Maine's homeless are languishing on the street. And if you look at column 2, we've spent $56,098 per person in this one column. Just think about that for a minute. And then if you go to page 7, you've got 85 families that we've spent $13.9 million to house in a hotel. 85 families, 14 million. Those numbers are shocking. That's why we're here. Our homeless are languishing on the street. The Democrats are cutting the line. There it is. We'll take questions.
So what's your proposal? What would you do to change it? I mean, general assistance is available to people, all people who come to Maine and don't have a place to go, who doesn't have food. Asylum seekers are here legally pursuing a legal process. So what would you change and how would you shut this down?
Randy, I think there's about 1 million things you could do that are better than paying that kind of money. I mean, you
What are
could,
5 out of 1 million?
don't invite them in.
So again, right, there is a model that works, right? Now, this is not, and again, I want to go back to this point about push and pull factors, right? What we have on the table right now is a state where people are flocking to from other states because of the programs that are in place right now, that were put in place by the Democrats. Those are all factors that bring more people to Maine that otherwise wouldn't be coming here and frankly shouldn't be coming here. I don't know if you know this, but the winters are pretty cold. And so if you don't have a plan and you're homeless, why the heck would you come to Maine? Unless there were plenty of government assistance programs that you could rely on to get you through that winter. In northern Maine, we actually said no thanks to the money. There was another round that was eventually proposed of the hotel funding that was actually causing a lot of problems for our community because a lot of those folks there were not actually homeless. They just didn't have a more attractive offer to go to in other places other than a free hotel room for, in that case, years. So there's things that you can do, like the program that we stood up in northern Maine, by literally just pulling people from the community together and saying, okay, look, yes, we need a place for folks that are actually homeless so that they don't freeze in Maine in the winter. Absolutely. We're going to stand that up. We're going to make sure that that exists. Funny enough, we ran into a lot of government problems in that, the fire department regulation, which caused all kinds of other issues. So again, the problem there being government. But that was a solution that targeted the people that are actually in need, got them the resources that they actually needed to be successful and break that cycle of generational poverty. And it didn't involve cutting more blank checks that we've seen time and time again without a plan, without any sort of long-term vision for how you're going to get these folks on their feet and with the skill set that they need to be successful for themselves and their families. That's the difference between Republicans and Democrats. We want to find solutions. They want to stroke another check on behalf of the taxpayers with no plan and no accountability.
Senator Stewart, having covered the homeless problem in Aroostook County
Right.
time at
Yes, you
WHM,
did.
covering the task force that you sat on, as well as you being a board member of ACAP there, I'm sure you're well aware that, and you said it yourself, the people that are coming in, the migrants, aren't coming to northern Maine. So, I mean, how are you comparing the problem that you're seeing in northern Maine, where it's less people per capita, with what we're seeing in the bigger cities where you are seeing that migration?
Yeah, it comes back to there are much more pull factors in those places than there are up north. We took the responsible, reasonable approach. Other folks are just sitting back and relying on another check coming from the state and coming from the feds. That's not a plan for success. That's a plan for failure. That's a plan for entrapment. That's a plan for making sure that these folks literally end up accomplishing nothing. We don't want that as Republicans. We want these folks. We know that there is a workforce problem. We know that folks are getting older and younger folks are going to be needed to fill those gaps in our workforce if we're going to get by. But just throwing more money at a problem without a plan and without a vision is not a responsible solution. It shouldn't even be proposed again in this legislature. In fact, I am so distraught by the fact that here we are once again seeing another proposal for more money and still no plan. We were told that wouldn't happen. They lied. They lied to us. And here we are. And the only question is, are we going to fall for it again? and be right back here another year later with another handout in front of us saying we just need more money. That's the only option, and it's not the only option. That is false.
What's the Republican counter proposal? You're saying the Democrats don't have a plan. Go back to Randy's question. What's the Republican plan? We have people that are arriving in Maine. They are coming here legally or following the legal process. So
They're not.
So yeah, I got to push back on that narrative a little bit, right? Yeah, there are some folks that are following a legal process. But understood. Let me finish this because I want to push back. You said earlier too the same thing, that the reality is there are a lot of folks, and I think it was even Angus King who mentioned earlier, that a lot of these folks are going to in fact end up being asked to leave. So we're sort of setting a precedent here, saying, you know, yes, continue to come, soak up a lot of taxpayer money that could have been going to other things like our school systems, our healthcare systems, our nursing homes, which are incredibly underfunded. Those are actual Maine people that actually need our help. And instead, we're going to give this money away to temporary folks who we know aren't going to stay here. They're just here for a free ride for a few years, can't work legally, can't. And then what? So that's not a, it is a federal process. It's absolutely broken, but that doesn't mean we have to enable it. Why are they coming from New Orleans to Maine? That's actually happening. Why?
well, in some cases, Republican governors are putting them on buses and sending them to Democratic states. So there's all kinds of politics on it. But I want to talk about this, what you guys have.
Yeah, the instance I'm talking about is not one of those one-offs. I think what you're seeing is the flocking is happening to liberal states with liberal policies, with a lot of government programs and a lot of free money being thrown around.
So you guys don't have a counter proposal?
I just laid out, Randy, just a minute ago. You could solve this problem locally if folks would stop just enabling. That's all we're doing is just enabling.
Someone in need general assistance because the state law says.
Nobody's saying deny them. We're just saying you don't have to spend $13 million on 85 families. That's the difference. That's the difference. You don't have to spend that kind of money to get results that actually move people's lives towards prosperity. That's a Democrat way of thinking, and we reject it. One more question, and I don't know if you want to jump in at all. I've been kind of hogging the mic today, but.
Are there differences?
Maine has 7,000 homeless Mainers, and you're not asking what's the proposal for them. Why does it have to be people that are skipping the line?
No, they don't.
Randy, 55,000 per person. I mean, if that's a plan, I know a lot of Mainers that would accept 55,000 in housing vouchers to take whatever these jobs are that they're supposed to fill. It's ludicrous to say that, oh, well, that's the plan. If there's not an alternative, you know.
Want to share here? Yeah.
So, Randy, yeah, we've toured the shelters. We've been there. Chronic homelessness is a serious issue in this state. When you spend $14 million to help 85 families, you're not investing the resources and the creating of systems to really, truly help people. The majority of people who are chronically homeless, Randy, are struggling with substance use disorders, okay? All of this spending is a diversion from the critical care that we need to provide to people to help them get better. I have, from working for us, a young man who is a refugee from Syria. His name's Ahmed. He's a great kid. I got a call last year from the high school. They said, hey, we have a kid in our JMG program and he's really interested in real estate. Would you take him on to teach him a little bit about the business? And I was like, sure, send him over. So I met with him and I said, what's your story? He's like, you know, my house was getting bombed when I was a kid, and when I was 10, I moved here. We started in Arizona and then we came up to Maine. But he's a young man who has tried as hard as he can to learn about the way that things are happening here so that he can set himself up for success. He worked for us for over a year, and now he's attending Central Maine Community College and studying business. I would like to create more systems to help create more stories like Ahmed's story, where he now will be participating in the Maine economy to help us get better. And the problem is, whenever we say, no, don't do this anymore, the news outlets always say Republicans don't want to help. And that's not true. We want to actually really, truly help. We don't want people to be languishing on requiring a government handout for the rest of their life. No, we want to set them up for success. And when you spend $57,000 per person on a temporary shelter where you're told, hey, come here, we're going to teach you how to do things the way we do things here so that you can be successful, and then that doesn't actually happen, 85 families starting in August, 64 of them still there, they're not getting it done.
But isn't the problem that asylum seekers, they can't even apply for a work permit for at least 6 months after they've filed their asylum application, which itself can take a year to pull
Well,
together.
and that was part of
And then there are
the
processing
federal package that got stymied recently. Obviously,
right,
there's a
by
lot of stuff
Republicans.
going on, not by Republicans. I mean, you can couch it that way if you
No,
want.
Republicans totally killed the southern border deal.
Well, I mean, we're state level policymakers. I'm going to say this. Here's the deal. We need the Fed's help to change the work permit requirements so that people can go to work. Yes, but in the meantime, we shouldn't be hanging a banner out front that says, "Come to Maine. We're going to take care of you, and everything's going to be fine." That's a lie to those people because it can't even happen federally.
Right.
I just
Okay,
have one more for
no,
Bill.
we got one more question over here, and then we'll wrap up for the day.
Are there splits amongst Republicans here, though, in terms of what to do? Because the Office of New Americans, for example, you have Representative Colin Moore supporting that. You have business interests that may support that because they want workers, they really need them.
Yeah.
So it sounds like there's maybe some disagreement within the Republican caucus on whether we need to accept more workers, integrate them through this office, for example, or just not and worry about, I guess, lowering costs in other ways.
Yeah, so it's a good question. I'll go back to the point that I mentioned earlier, right? We recognize that there's a real workforce shortage here. Now, there's a difference between attracting more people to come to Maine and attracting folks who literally have no plan, that have no employment, and can't get employment because of other laws that we've talked about already. Then there is from attracting folks that are, equipped with other sort of credentials that could jump right in and provide value to our workforce, which we do desperately need. And I think that that's probably the crux of what we're trying to get at here, which is how do we find more creative ways to bring those types of folks in that can hit the ground running rather than spending money, all kinds of money, an exorbitant amount of money, on folks that are just going to do nothing here for one reason or another. That's, I think, the key issue there. So.
Just
Thanks
one more for
again,
Billy.
everybody,
It's an
and
important
we'll
one.
wrap. You can do a one-on-one after this? Okay,
So
all right.
you,
Gotta get folks out of here.
Figure 75,000, that the state wants to bring 75,000 asylum seekers to the state. What's your source on that?
The governor.
She says specifically 75,000 asylum seekers, not people from out of state to fill.
75,000 new Mainers.
And to you, what are you, but you're, sounds like you're suggesting that those are just asylum seekers, not people, anybody moving in.
Well, I
Is
get.
that your view of it?
Well, I guess you'd have to ask her for what her definition on new Maine. I take it as to mean asylum seekers.
So I would say, I gotta add one piece on this. So 2 years ago, there was a bill passed here that ended up being a pilot project. And it was around how do you attract more working families to Maine. That's an issue. That was a bill led by Republicans, funded by Republicans, ended up being stymied for a little bit with DECD, but ultimately got off the ground and is in phase 1 right now. So there are people that are out there, and the whole point is to go to compete for people in the labor force. You don't have to be, issuing a blanket welcome to anybody who, in this case, is going to be folks that are not going to be necessarily able to contribute to our economy. Let's be smarter about it. Let's be smarter about how we go about bridging this gap between folks who we know we will need to fill vacancies in our workforce. That's what Republicans are putting forward. You asked for solutions a little bit ago, Randy. There's one. There's one that was led entirely by Republicans. And you know what? If we had more money to go towards things like that, to pull in qualified individuals from across the country to come to Maine, to make a compelling case to come to Maine, we would do more of that. Unfortunately, the Democrat priority is let's bring in more asylum seekers and folks that can't actually work. And that doesn't actually move, and they do it under the guise of workforce. That's the most infuriating part, knowing full well that they won't be able to work. We have a different approach. We have real solutions. They have platitudes and blank checks. That's the difference. Thank you.